Hey guys, HackerSploit here, back again with another video. Welcome to Google Hacking for Pen Testing. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to use Google Hacking or Google Dorks for pen testing. So I'll be showing you the various search operators and queries that you can use to find vulnerabilities and stuff like that. So let's get started with understanding firstly what Google Hacking is or what Google Dorking is. So Google Hacking is a passive information gathering or footprinting technique that is used to discover vulnerabilities, data exposure, and security misconfigurations in websites. Now, these mistakes or misconfigurations are usually made by web developers or system administrators, and we'll actually take a look at that in a short while after we actually understand what we're doing here. So it involves using specialized search queries or search query operators to fine-tune results based on what you're looking for. So again, you can use these search query operators to fine-tune what you're looking for. So you may be looking for a particular site, or you may be looking for a particular file, that is on a particular top-level domain or a URL, stuff like that. So here are some of the common Google query operators that you can use when performing Google hacking. This is not a complete list. I will have a write-up where I'll actually have all of them on our blog at HackerSploit.com. So some of the basic and the most common ones that are used are going to be site, for example. So site will narrow your results to a site or a specific top-level domain. So for example, the search query would be site, and then you'd specify the site or the top-level domain, which is going to be in this case HackerSploit.com. You then have in title, which will restrict the results to the titles of web pages. So for example, if I wanted to look for all web pages that had the title HackerSploit, I would say in title HackerSploit. So the next one is in URL. All right, so in URL will restrict results to the URL of a website. So for example, if I'm looking for a web page that belongs to a particular domain or a top-level domain. So for example, if I was looking for the about page from the website HackerSploit.com, I would specify the in URL search query operator. Now that's the other important thing to take into consideration here, is that some of these operators cannot be combined with others to give you a much better results, or to fine-tune your results even more. And we'll actually talk about that when we'll be taking a look at this in a practical sense. The next one is very important, and that is your file type. So this will search for specific file types based on the extensions you specify. So let's say I'm looking for a PDF file. I can use the file type operator to specify that I'm only looking for PDF files. If I'm looking for an ISO file, I would specify the extension, or I would specify that particular suffix. The next one is going to be link. Again, very, very important. So this will search for pages linking to a specified URL or top-level domain. So for example, this will display web pages that all link to this particular domain or website, which is going to be HackerSploit.com. That's very useful to find relationships between domains and whether they may have shared information before. You then have your cache, which searches for a cached copy of a web page when it was indexed by Google. So it will display the most recent cached version of the website when it was indexed by Google. This can be useful if you're looking for older version of a web page. However, this is not the preferred method of doing so. So let's take a look at the actual query operator structure. Right now, I have a simple example here with HackerSploit.com, and I'm going to be using the site, in URL, and file type just to explain the example. So for example, the site would be HackerSploit.com, and of course I have the protocol, and it can also include the port. That's very important. The in URL is the particular page that belongs to the site. In this case, it could be the upload URL or the uploads page. And then of course we have the file type, which is going to be, you could be looking for a particular file with an extension. In this case, it's going to be just it's just going to be called file.pdf. So this is a simple example of how this is going to be structured, and how they are different, and what results they will bring out depending on what you specify. So the site is the actual site or the top level domain. The in URL is going to be the URL of a particular web page or a site. In this case, we're just using a simple example of the uploads page. And then file.pdf is an example of how you can specify a file type, and of course you can specify the name if you want to as well. We'll be taking a look at all of that shortly. We then have the Google hacking database. Now, this is very popular with pen testers because it is essentially a database or a collection of Google search queries specifically crafted to find vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, and data exposure. And of course, you can use these with various search engines. This is currently being maintained by ExploitDB. So you can check out this link. We'll also be taking a look at it once we have actually gone through the various operators that I wanted to show you. So this video is going to be focused on using Google hacking or Google Docs for pen testing and how to find vulnerabilities, data exposure, stuff like that. So without any further ado, let's actually get started with Google hacking. So I'll see you in the next step. Alright guys, I'm back and let's get started. So the first thing I want to actually take you through is the basics in case you're not familiar with them. So let me just zoom in and we can get started. So as I said, the first thing we want to get started off with is taking a look at things like the site, search query site, the in URL, in title, link, etc. So let's get started with the site. So let's say I want to display, well, look at that, look at the search results there. So funny cat videos, no, that's not what we're looking for. So if I want to restrict my searches to HackerSploit.com, and I'm going to be using my website, for obvious reasons. So you can see it essentially gives me all results based on that particular URL or top level domain. So I get tons of pages here that have been indexed by Google, and actually some of these pages don't even exist. Like for example, groups. You can see that if I click on groups here, it should take me to the website and tell me, yeah, there we are, page not found. So that's a very, very simple search query operator here. So that will essentially limit your search results to a particular domain. That's very useful when you're performing research on a company, because you can actually go through the various pages, whether they exist or not. You can sort of explore that or play around with that. Now, let's say I wanted to get a particular web page or a specific URL or in URL from this domain. I would say in URL, and you can see I can actually combine these search operators. So let's say I'm looking for the contact page on HackerSploit.com. I would say contact and I hit enter, and it actually gives me the contact page. So I can click open, I can open that up, and there you are. So you can see that you really use this to advantage when looking for particular pages. If you're looking for important pages for a company that you're performing a pen test on, like their HR pages, the admin pages, etc. So for example, if I say in URL WordPress admin, that hasn't been indexed. That's because the robots.txt file that I have actually disallows these pages from being indexed, and that's something you guys should keep in mind as well when working or developing websites. So again, I can change this to something like forum, for example, and that should be allowed. For some reason, Google is telling me I can't actually, I'm submitting too many results in one go, but there we are. So you can see that's the only page that has been indexed. All right, so that's how you can use it that way. Now I can also use the in title. Now the in title is great because it'll allow me to look for particular pages that have a particular title, and I can limit it again to a particular domain. So I can say site. Let's try bbc.com, and I say in title, and I can then say China, for example, right? And that'll display all the various pages that have the title China with it. So that again can be used to sift through results and display only what you're looking for. So I can say, for example, Chelsea, right? I can switch it Chelsea, and it gives me all the results there. So you get the idea. The reason I'm covering this with basic examples first is just to give you a feel for how things work if you're not sure of how it works already. The next thing is, of course, link. Now the link operator, as I mentioned, will essentially display all pages that have a link to a particular domain or a website. So for example, I can say link HackerSploit.com, and you'll see the difference in a second. So not only does this display HackerSploit.com, the top level domain, it also displays any other websites that have the link HackerSploit.com. So you can see my YouTube channel, Facebook page, some statistic website, my LinkedIn page, another statistic website, GitHub, HackerSploit.org, Cybery for some reason. Let's check the third page. So you get the idea. It essentially displays all the web pages that have a link to HackerSploit.com. That again is very useful, as I pointed out. And finally, we have the cache, right? So if I display the cache for bbc.com, that'll display the last or the latest cache of this page. So there we are. So you can see this is Google's cache of bbc.com. It's a snapshot of the page as it appeared on January 23rd, 2020. It gives you the time. You can view the text-only version, etc. So again, this is not really useful. You can use the Wayback Machine or archive.org if you're looking for older web pages. So for example, if I say archive.org and I just click on that, and let me just show you this right now so that I can actually cover it in one go. This is fairly simple. So I can say, bbc.com. And I'll hit enter, and we'll look for an old version of bbc.com from somewhere maybe in 2000. Let's see how that website looks. So if I click on the web page from the year 2000, we'll get the one in 7:50 a.m. Let's see how that looked. How that looked rather. So there we are. We can see. Let's see if it actually loads up. That's quite an old website. There we are. So that was I think pretty much one of the first versions of bbc.com, and that can be helpful if you're performing a pen test on a site. There could be important information from that site. So these are the basics. Now let's talk about some really cool stuff that you can do. And of course, I'm gonna talk about the Google hacking database in a second. So let's just go back to Google and let's talk about, first of all, let's see, what should we talk about first? Let's talk about directory listing, right? So if I want to look for websites that have a directory listing enabled, I can say, for example, all I need to do is say in title, and then I would use an operator here. I pass on the strings that I want, and I can say, I can use the typical Apache directory listing text. So that would be index of, and then I would hit enter, and that'll give me essentially all websites with the indexes publicly available. So for example, if we say index of .co.uk, I'm not really sure what that is, but it looks like sort of like a website here, a hacking website, I'm not really sure. We have various indexes here that are displaying what looks to be movie series, weird stuff like that. So yeah, this is quite illegal, but this is simply a video where I demonstrate how you can use this and how powerful search engines are. I've already covered how to use a search engine like Shodan, which is more aligned with pen testers, but Google can work out just fine as well. So you can see that this will essentially just list an index. It really doesn't list an index of particular files, but I can actually specify or provide a bit more of a context for this. So for example, if I wanted to display the index of the Etsy directory, I would say, let me just go back and say index of Etsy, and I would hit enter, and that'll display the Etsy directory if it is available to be browsed. So this can be very helpful, especially when looking for data. So let's try and open up a random website. By the way, as I said, I'm going to be blurring out anything important. So you can see this lists the contents of the Etsy directory here. If we just check out a website that could be listing anything important, let's see, fort.md, whether that's listing anything important. Yeah, so that lists some directories. So there we have the password file, and we can actually save it. So you can see how dangerous this can become, and I do actually pass caution. This video is only for educational purposes, so do keep that in mind. You can also say password, and let's see whether we can actually get a password. That'll be quite cool, but of course not cool. And look at this, it looks like we actually have access to, I don't know why it's telling me that's in the password directory, but we have an admin.pl Etsy shadow. If we click on that, that just takes us back. Let's check out, if we try and browse to the top level directory, that takes us to a website, looks like a Russian domain. But you get the idea. So you can pretty much scour through directory listings that of websites that actually have them enabled. So these are common misconfigurations that you'll find most web developers actually made quite a while ago, but you can see the information that you can get is very, very useful and important. Let me just get rid of this captcha here. I'm using a VPN. That's primarily why I think Google is restricting my searches. Let's try out one more before we can start experimenting with the other queries. So we have a mail directory here. Autoresponders. Can we go to the top level directory? No, that just takes us back to the domain. Looks like a Japanese website. All right, so that is how you can essentially work with directory listing. Now let's talk about SQL databases and the configuration files, the PHP configuration files that will actually store the credentials to these databases. So again, to do this, we say in title, and we're looking for directory listing, but we're looking for a configuration file. So we say index, sorry, I want to get the correct syntax on that. So index of, and then we say, we can say config.php and hit enter. And that'll list us, it'll give us all of these configuration files. Sorry, let me just close that tab, open that up in a new window. But so let's see if we can find anything useful. Index of, let's see, config. We can actually say, we can say config, and then we can actually start off with file type. Sorry, we can say this is PHP, hit enter, and let's see if we can actually get this. I'm going to say config, hit enter. Can we get anything useful here? Nothing really useful here. Let's just go back to my previous search query. So we just stick with config.php. Looks like we haven't been able to find anything useful yet. Let's try and check out this website here. So there we are. Looks like we have the PHP folder, PHP ini file, and this looks like the configuration for this particular website. So nothing important there, but if we try and switch this to maybe WordPress, so we say WordPress config.php, hit enter, and that gives us at least one WordPress config file. So there we are. So we can actually access the entire directory of the WordPress installation. So if we say, it looks like we have quite a few WordPress configuration files. Can we actually access them? No, that takes us directly up there. Can we go to a top level directory? No, we can't. Looks like we don't have sufficient permissions to actually access these files. So that's a good thing, at least to some extent. So let's try this. Let's try another website before we test out some of the other queries. So you can see that you can really get some very, very juicy information or some very important information. So there we are, WordPress config.php. That looks like it is a misconfigured WordPress installation. Let's check out this last site before we actually move on. It's been a long time since I've actually tried this out. So there we are. So WordPress config.php. I think we can actually get it with wget, but again, that's beyond the scope of this video, and I want to actually keep this video as legal as possible, given the fact that YouTube have been really tightening up on their restrictions. Speaking of databases, let's try and access some Microsoft databases here. So we can say, can we use in title all in? We can use the all in URL search query, which will essentially display or search. You can actually see we have quite a few suggestions here that will actually give us the file that we're looking for, but we're looking for the Microsoft admin. So we can say admin, and we say file type is going to be Microsoft database file. So we're usually looking for the admin.mdb. We hit enter, and that gives us some Microsoft admin file. So let's see if we can access some here. It'll probably prompt us to save the file. So there we are. We can actually download it. So it's a Microsoft Access Database or MDB file. Usually find some very good information being stored in here. Let's see. They're not really used anymore, but you can actually see we have some sort of a login form here. That's not what you're looking for. Let's talk about, let's see what else we can access here. I don't want to keep this video too long, so let's try and access some other files. What if we want to access a terminal web server? or terminal servers rather, that we can, let's see if we can actually do that. So say in URL ts web. So this will actually, let's see if we can actually find one that we can access, or one that's potentially open. So we have one from Gitcoin. I'm not really sure what that is. So this is essentially a terminal web server where we can actually interact with a terminal. That doesn't look right. That's weird. Last time I tried this out quite a while ago, it looked like we actually had a few sessions. So there we are. So we can actually, if you do have credentials, or you do actually find one of these panels exposed, it can be really, really helpful. You can actually get a few sessions. I remember trying it out back in the day, quite a while ago. You could actually get like anonymous access onto one of the Windows servers, where you can actually just log in and you have access to a machine like without any authentication at all. So there we are. Looks, do we have anything here? Nah. But in any case, that was an old technique that I used to use quite a bit. So I've talked about that. Directory listing. How about the auth user files? That was also quite cool back in the day. So all in URL, and then we can also say, so you can see that we have various other ones that you can try out. So I'll actually show you that with the Google Hacking database. So we can say auth user file.txt. That's the one, and then this will display some usernames and passwords. Let's just add the colon there. That's why I'm not getting the results. So there we are. Looks like we have some auth user and passwords here. Let's see. Let's try and open this up. So there we are. We see we can have the username, passwords, and the email to a particular user, and you can actually use that domain to see if you can actually try and log in. So these are pretty much old websites that have been configured incorrectly, but nonetheless this can be quite helpful. So we have a postfix admin page here. Some of the websites don't even work, so there you are. So some of them really don't work out. So yeah, we've talked about that. The other one I wanted to show you is the storing of passwords. So as you know, many people like storing passwords, or enterprises like storing passwords in spreadsheet files or XLS files. So we can actually use a special Google search query here. So we can say login, and we say login. And we can say, of course, the password is going to be equal to and then we specify the wildcard here, and the file type is going to be we'll say XLS, and we hit enter, and we're still getting some of these capture requests here. There we are. So it looks like we have some passwords stored in XLS files. So should I actually display this? Should I do that? Where is this being stored, by the way? This is on HubSpot.net. We have another cycle passwords. Let's try this. Let's see what this is all about. 2016 cycle passwords. Should I do this? All right, I'll probably blur the passwords, but let's see if we can actually get some legitimate passwords here. So I'll open that up. Yeah, we get passwords. That should be blurred, in case anyone is wondering. Let's see. User request to US bank. All right, you know what? I'm going to stay away from that. I'm going to get myself into a lot of trouble here. Let's see. M&A passwords. Yeah, so you get the idea. These are usually small companies and universities that usually, or schools that usually store their websites like this. So I've pretty much covered quite a bit here. Have I covered file types have I covered them quite well? So again, file type is fairly simple. So for example, I say site cali.org, and I can say file type ISO, and that'll display. That's weird. That's really weird. Is it calilinux.org? Say in title in title file type ISO. Does that display anything here? Nothing. We can say in title Cali file type ISO, That doesn't give us any files. That's weird. If we change it to file, or we can actually just try ISO here instead of using that. Say ISO, yeah, and that takes us to the download page that looks for the ISO keyword there. But there you go. So those are some of my most useful Google hacking strings, or the various keywords and operators that you can use. If we take a look at the Google hacking database, you can see we have like tons of them that you can use to find vulnerabilities on particular websites. So if I search for WordPress, for example, you can see that this will display the WordPress backup files. Looks like we have, again, the password XLS login and password files indexed. Let's see, let's actually try that. That should give us some WordPress passwords. Let's copy that. And let's try that out right now. There we are. So it looks like we have some passwords at least here. So we're not going to get into that because it's going to be quite illegal. But again, you get the idea. So the Google hacking database will pretty much give you what you're looking for. So if you're looking for vulnerabilities with Apache, you can search for Apache here. You can go ahead and take a look at all of the various keywords that you can use to find vulnerabilities with Apache, or look for indexes. So if you're looking for an index of a particular version of Apache, like for example Apache 2.4.7 with Ubuntu, you can also change that to CentOS. So for example, we say Ubuntu here, or I can actually change that right now. That's within one. Let's try that. Let's see if we can actually change that. CentOS. Yeah, there we are. So it actually displays versions that are running CentOS. Let's try this one. These are essentially just trackers, I believe, but you get the idea. So that's all I wanted to actually demonstrate in this video. I know this video has been going for quite a while now, but do let me know what you think. I would love to hear what you guys have actually found, if you've actually been experimenting with various strings to find various search results and misconfigurations. That's going to be it for this video, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Peace.